Ted Kimberley, your host for this episode. And my guest, I'm really, really excited to introduce a new forward for the Blaze in the 2022-23 season. Brock Trotter is joining me. Brock, thank you so much for giving up your time to do this, man. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. Happy to do it. I'm glad we got it all sorted out with the time zones and everything here, and we're good to go.
That's always a headache for me. It's always a headache. I always worry about Greenwich Mean Time and British Summertime. I'm never really sure which I'm in, right. But I'm glad this worked out.
For sure.
But the one thing, so I wanted to take you down a little bit of a trip down memory lane, if you don't mind, because you've had such such an interesting career. You know, you played in some awesome leagues, some interesting leagues. I know you've got a couple of good stories in the bag. So if you don't mind, do you mind if I start right in college there? Because you went to Denver.
Yeah.
Denver's an amazing school for a start. I mean, what a good place to play hockey, a beautiful place to play hockey. And you played on a line with a beauty. He used to play for the Blaze and Ryan Dingle there. Do you remember playing with Dinger, and what was he like as a teammate?
For sure. No, he's a great guy. We actually had quite a bit of success playing on a line together. I want to say that was my second year at Denver. You know, he can really put the puck in the net. But no, like you said, Denver was, I'm sure he probably talked highly about it there. He got, you know, he outdid me. He got a national championship before I got there, but, no, I have very fond memories. They have a unbelievable, athletic program there, and they really take care of their athletes. So, yeah, they actually had a big win this year, another national championship too. So, yeah, it's always you know, it's always nice to see when, you know, boys bring it home and for the alumni. So
it's interesting to see, because I actually stumbled upon some pictures of you guys together. I can't remember what the context was, but Dinger had a full head of hair, and I don't know when that left him.
Yeah, and so I probably did too. No, he's yeah, I guess by the time he got to you, he was shaving it by then. But
oh yeah.
Yeah, that's funny. It's funny you bring that up. But no, I was actually I kind of spoke a little bit with him back and forth leading up to kind of coming to Coventry, and he spoke very highly about the team, the organization, and how him and his family were treated by you guys. So you know, he was actually one of the reasons why it all kind of seemed to work for this year.
Thank you, Ryan Dingle. Even though he's been retired a couple of years now, he's still helping us out. But I guess that's the community, right? But speaking of your time in Denver, just real quick, I mean, I had to look this up because NCAA is not something that I'm massively amazing with. But I know with the more NCAA guys that we've had through the doors, I'm slowly learning. But looking at the WCHA conference when you were there, that's probably, if not one of the toughest conference in NCAA hockey. North Dakota are in it, Minnesota are in it, St. Cloud are in it, Michigan Tech are in it. The list is endless, and you guys had some real success while you were there. And I think it was in your senior year. They won the conference. I think you turned pro by that point, though, right? But I mean, what an outfit!
Yeah, yeah, like it's interesting that you almost have to keep an eye on things year to year with the conferences changing. I know when the Big Ten kind of came in. It took a couple of the big schools like the Minnesotas and Wisconsin, which were a big part of the old WCHA. But, you know, I'm a little biased, so I think it was probably the best conference in NCAA. You might, the only argument I think maybe have been Hockey East. But, you know, I still think the depth of the conference in the WCHA at the time was probably the deepest as across the board. You know, you always get the good teams in each conference that stack up well against anybody, but I would say the depth of the conference at that time was really good. And I think they've done a really good job of, you know, putting teams into the right leagues that, you know, are very good for, you know, successful for competition and stuff. But honestly, if you ask me right now where all the teams were, I probably wouldn't even be able to, you know, I might be 50% at this point. So,
yeah, it's interesting. I mean, not that you played in that league, but like the East Coast is the same with teams coming and going. I always feel that way. But like I said, you kind of missed out on the coast. You went straight into Hamilton in the American League, and Hamilton are one of those teams that have been around forever. And even in that year that you turned pro, splitting it between college and Hamilton, got quite a bit of ice time. You were able to rack up some points there. Was that kind of a bit of an affirmation to you that it was the right time to turn pro, that you'd made that good decision?
Yeah, like, I mean, it's always a tough choice. Playing college hockey it's a lot different than pro. Like it's your job and a career, opposed to you're just kind of playing to play, leading up to that. But that's kind of everything that you're working for. And if you're playing any sort of junior or college, and your hopes is to to try to make a shot at or take a run at the NHL and these top leagues. At some point you got to make the jump. And I do know it. It was probably my second year in Hamilton. I would say right after Christmas, where I was really happy with my game and was getting a lot more consistent with the amount of games we were playing, because you make that jump from college to pro. And I want to say we in the month of February alone, we would have played half of our season that you play in college. So
yeah,
it's a little bit of an adjustment. I feel like I adjusted to it fairly quickly. But yeah, like, once I kind of got my bearings under me, I had a really good second half in Hamilton. And we got treated really good there. The ownership all the way down through to our coaching staff we were given all the opportunities to have success. And we had some really good teams with my stint in Hamilton, and it was actually a lot of fun. Made a lot of friends there.
Yeah, there are always, I think, I mean, certainly from a media perspective, there are teams and groups that really stand out. And I'm assuming as a player, it's the same. And the 2009-2010 season, if that doesn't stand out in your memory as one of your highlight seasons, I don't know what will. You finished sixth in scoring in the American League. You had a deep run into the playoffs, and you got that call up to the Canadiens as well. And, not just a call up to the NHL, to an original six team who you went undrafted to. That's something special right there. What do you remember of those two games, man? Because I imagine that was you trying to soak it all in and pinching yourself.
Yeah, it honestly feels like a lifetime ago now, just with the amount of different places I've kind of been with hockey. But I'd be lying to say if those memories aren't burned into my head. It was a pretty surreal experience. It was actually the neat thing about it that I get to kind of tell people is that the guy that played on my line, who was actually my roommate in Hamilton, his name is Ryan White. He's more of a grittier player, could scrap, and kind of a fan favorite guy. But he's a year younger than me. We're both from the same hometown in Brandon, Manitoba. We both got called up on the same day. The funny thing is we didn't even play on the same line in the American League, but we're playing on the same line in the NHL when we got called up. So we got to play our first games together. It was a really neat experience. And I don't know how familiar you guys are with kind of like CBC and Hockey Night in Canada and all that kind of stuff, and there's a pretty big tradition with in Canada and hockey players. And the first game we were playing, Sidney Crosby and the Pittsburgh Penguins, so you're out there, we're pretty much the big ticket on TV that night. And kind of end up doing you go through the whole thing, end up getting like the interview after the game on national television. And it's kind of a whirlwind when it's happening, but it's always very fond memories looking back. I didn't end up scoring in the game, but I think I had like 5 or 6 shots. I hit a post through Marc-Andre Fleury's. I think my first shot was through his legs, 5-hole, hit the post and went out the other side. Me and my line mates were celebrating, kind of did the old one. And it went really well. We won the game. And I think, a couple of the guys, actually, some of the veteran guys, I think Mike Camilleri took a couple of us out for dinner, which again, guys don't have to do that stuff. But, they went and they did it, and, congratulated us on playing in the NHL. And it was a fun experience. And then the next the next night, same kind of thing. It was an earlier game, but we were playing against the Boston Bruins, who was, pretty much the biggest,
Yeah.
The biggest rivalry that Montreal has for sure. And they ended up, they played well and they beat us pretty good that night. And I think we had like a Super Bowl event with the team the next night. So kind of got to hang with the guys and stuff. And, it was a fun experience. But the one story I kind of like to tell that to go back a bit. So when we were playing Pittsburgh, so we were Pittsburgh was trying to match up against so I was on the fourth line, and you could tell they were trying to throw out, like Crosby's line against us to probably just get us hemmed in. But, we were playing with a bunch of we're essentially the Energizer Bunny. Like we had unlimited energy because it was our first game. We're just playing on pure adrenaline. So we're kind of buzzing around nonstop. And a couple times we ended up, hemming them in their zone. And I just kind of remember there was a whistle, and I'm skating off to go for a change. And all of a sudden I kind of just get the wind knocked out of me. I was like, well, I was kind of startled, and I was like, well, what was that? And I kind of looked back, and Crosby had kind of just skated right by me, and kind of gave me a little shot, just, right on the button there. He kind of take the wind out of me and caught me off guard. And I kind of looked back, and he gives me, a big wink. And I was just kind of like, what a really weird thing to transpire. So fast forward 2 weeks later, I'm back in Hamilton. And so another guy that was living with me and Ryan White was my buddy, Eric Nielsen. So we're driving he didn't have a car, so he was living with us. So he'd drive in my car with me to the rink every morning. And so he's sitting in the passenger seat, and he finally goes, we hadn't talked much about the games and stuff, but, he's a pretty laid back guy. And he finally says, did anything weird happen during the game? Like, did anything kind of happen to you guys? I'm like, I was racking my brain. I'm like, well, not really. I couldn't really think of anything. He's like, nothing happened. Like, you didn't get like speared in the gut or anything, and in between whistles. And I'm like, well, now that you say it, I'm like, well, Crosby kind of gave me a shot and winked at me. And then Nielsen just starts dying laughing. And he's just, so what then he tells me is that he actually roomed with Crosby in the queue. And it was kind of his like protector. He was he's a pretty tough guy. And he starts laughing. He goes, I told him to do it. so he basically set the whole thing up, and it was kind of waiting, he was sitting on it for a couple of weeks. So I kind of thought that was a kind of a funny story.
That's hilarious. So he just texted, said, hey, my buddy Brock's got the call up tomorrow night in Montreal. Go give him a little something.
Yeah, pretty much. He said, kind of do something and mess with them. And then I think they kind of talked after, and he just kind of put it on ice for a bit. And then by the time, we circled around, he kind of tried to bring it up because I hadn't mentioned anything. So he kind of I think he wanted to get the credit for kind of being involved with it. So, it was just kind of it was funny. I'm glad he did it. It's, now I've got something to talk to you about. So.
Yeah. You've probably got 1,000,001 stories to tell at parties about that time. But the one thing I got to ask, did you manage to keep one of the jerseys?
I did. I have it. I gave it to my dad on his 60th birthday.
Wow.
So I kind of got it all framed up with because the NHL does a good job. They give you the game puck and the roster sheet and all that. So I kind of took that and I put it together in a little bit of made a bigger thing and kind of gave that to my dad. And the funny thing is that he was actually working out in downtown Montreal for about 5 years. So, he kind of had this out there, and it was kind of, people would ask him, whose jersey's that? He's like, oh, it's my son. He played for the Canadian, and it's just kind of funny how it all works out, right?
That's amazing. And the second year, though, the year afterwards, you made a bit of a U-turn. You went and played in Riga in the KHL. And, having just had a cup of coffee in the NHL, I think a lot of people would have forgiven you for trying to stick it out in Hamilton, maybe, and having another crack at it. What prompted that move?
Well, so I was kind of, at the time, I was I was dealing with, I was talking with my North American agents, and the way it was going was at that before I had kind of, I'm trying to think, just go back. I want to say my entry level just came up,
Yeah.
and was offered a qualifying offer to go back. But before I had even got qualified, the Canadians had signed, I want to say they had 14 or 15 forwards on one-way contracts, somewhere around there. And, I knew I was on kind of the precipice of kind of breaking into the league, and, I still had to be consistent and put up numbers. But and then kind of out of the blue, like I wasn't even thinking about going to Europe or anything, and then had the team from the KHL in Riga reach out, and offered a pretty solid contract. And, I just kind of went back and forth in my head, and I had talked to some other guys that had played in the league. And as far as they were concerned, the guys in the KHL, or the guys that had kind of played in the KHL, AHL, a little bit of NHL, and they'd kind of convinced me that the KHL was better hockey than the American League at that time. So I didn't even really so like by the time I made my decision on it, I didn't think that going there was going to hurt me.
Sure.
If anything, if I go there, I do well, it could be very similar to doing well in the American League again, and I know I had a very successful individual season with Hamilton, but that being said, the team did really well too. Like our
Yeah.
coach in Hamilton ended up he got the head coaching job in Tampa,
Oh
and
wow.
like Guy Boucher, and he'd only coached 1 year pro. That was with us. And so,
Wow.
you're kind of seeing these other guys, either guys on my team signing good deals, or, the coaches, he's leaving and doing this. And I don't know, there was just something about it that kind of just caught my attention. And I kind of
Sure.
I saw it as another kind of challenge. And I just decided to go and see what the KHL was all about.
I guess two things as well, right? It's a different style of hockey. I think, particularly when you were playing, I think it was probably a little bit faster than the NHL. I think, speed was a big key thing in that league. But also, if you're trying to break into the NHL, and like you said, they were stacked in the forward position on a one-way contract, you've got to have that experience that stands out. So kind of similar to, was it Austin Matthews that went to Switzerland for a year
Yeah.
and just
Yep.
thought, I'm going to give that a roll? Was that kind of something that was in your head as well? Try and develop my game, try and experience something different I can take maybe up into Montreal.
For sure. I mean, the part of it, like when you're in the minors, if you don't have the mindset that you're gonna try to make the NHL, you're playing the wrong sport, I think. So, but like, I just saw it as another stepping stone. If I want to go play in the NHL, I don't think this is going to hurt me. I think that there's the hockey's very good. You're playing on the big ice, which is different, but that's going to work on your skating. You're going to become a better skater because of it. And all those things. I actually ended up playing on a pretty good team, and we had a lot of success there as well when I was in Riga. Like we ended up upsetting Moscow Dynamo in the first round. It was like as if we had, to be honest, it felt like we won the Stanley Cup. If you asked our fans, I was like, is the league over? Did we win it? But that's kind of how it felt. But yeah, it was a tough decision. But you kind of just have to make the decision and move on and go for try to make the best of it. So.
Yeah. That's another thing that I guess some people maybe don't realize is I was particularly at that time, there were only a handful of teams in the KHL that weren't Russian, and Riga being one. So to upset against a Russian team, particularly someone as prestigious as Moscow, was huge. And I guess the other thing as well, I got to ask you while you're on, you hear some crazy stories about Russia and life in the KHL. Now, it's a relatively PG podcast, but have you got anything that stands out in your mind as being a story you can tell from that time?
Well, I mean, I could talk a little bit about maybe the playoffs and kind of what had happened. But so the team that we ended up beating in the first round and upsetting them was Moscow Dynamo. So their head coach was actually the head coach of the Latvian national team.
Okay.
So, and the majority of our players obviously were Latvian guys. So that was kind of a bonus, and it was kind of a weird storyline as well. But the thing that kind of is an interesting one is that, so they ended up making some trades. They had some really good ex NHL players like Miroslav Satan.
Oh yeah.
And they made a deal for Chris Simon at the deadline. and like, I mean, you could probably just, Google stuff that's, gone on with Chris or whatever, but he was a very, very good hockey player. But so we were in Moscow. I think we just went up 2-1 in the series. Or maybe just tied it up or 1-1. Regardless, we had just won the game. And I'm literally giving the interview post game at the end where the Zamboni goes out. Both teams kind of go out the same entrance and exit. So the girl that's working for the KHL, she's got the microphone. She's going back and forth asking about the game. I think we might have won an overtime or something. And pretty much what had happened was that I'm giving the interview. All of a sudden I get punched in the back of my head, but we're live. Like we're literally live on national television there. And so I'm just like kind of in shock, and I my helmet's now like in my face. So I kind of, I'm looking like kind of an idiot like now, and because no one could really see what had happened. So I put it back on, I look by, and Chris Simon's walking by, and he basically gives me you're dead kind of thing. And I was just kind of looking at I'm like, this is on camera, this is all live, this is live. And so something like that, it's just kind of funny that my Russian story is one of two North American guys getting into it, which is kind of funny. But
that is funny. I've done many a post-game interview, and I think the weirdest thing that's ever happened is the mascot was kind of fooling around behind me. I could not ever imagine one of the guys on the other team maybe hitting me from behind, or the guy I was interviewing.
It was crazy. I couldn't believe it. It was almost to the point I almost thought it was one of my own guys.
Yeah,
kind of messing with me, but I'm like, that was kind of hard. So I don't think that was that wasn't a friendly punch, if that's a thing. But so he kind of did that. So that's kind of an interesting one. Just off the top of my head, I can't think of anything. It was honestly, when I played there, it was, the league had just kind of switched. It was the second or third league that it was the KHL, and honestly, at that time they were doing a really good job, and they were trying to really promote the league. It was kind of one of the reasons I had decided to kind of go over there. But yeah, the hockey was really, really good, especially come playoff time. There's some really good hockey going on in that league.
Yeah, for sure. It's right up there. Well, if it's not number 2, it's number 3.
Yeah, for sure.
There's a few leagues in there that are jostling around. You came back to North America, though. You kind of bounced around a couple of teams. You were in Portland for the most of that season with do you remember Evan Bludoff from that year? I think he would have probably been a rookie. He was with us.
Yeah, I remember.
Yeah.
Yep.
So he did the opposite of Dingle, from what I remember. He had his hair real short back then, but when he was playing with us, he had it hella long. He just didn't cut
long
it.
Hair, yeah. He had the long flow with us in Portland for sure. I want to say that was I want to say that was his rookie year, that year in Portland.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense time-wise. But then things kind of changed, dramatically for you. You picked up an injury that kept you out for not just the best part of a year, which sometimes happens, two calendar years. What happened there? And that must have been, one of the toughest couple of years of your life there.
Yeah, it was. So it was right around the time when I was in the KHL, and kind of the end of that season. I started developing a little bit of a chronic upper back injury that was really limiting my mobility with my neck, which was obviously, when you're playing hockey, you kind of got to be able to use, you kind of got to be able to look both ways.
Yes.
You know, you gotta look both ways if you're crossing the street, right? So when you're playing professional hockey, you kind of need to be able to be mobile and move at a fast pace. And as it was going on, it was developing into be more and more of an issue. And I'd ended up playing quite a long time with it developing. And it took longer than we thought. It ended up being kind of made a decision with myself, my family, and my agents, and they just kind of said, you know, we got to get this looked after before, you know, you can't play anymore. You know, I was still pretty young, and I figured I had time to kind of get it under control. But it was basically by the time I had gotten back, I think like you said, about 2 full years. The only thing that kind of helped me with some of that was the 1 year was the lockout. I believe the first year was the NHL lockout. So in my head, I had kind of decided that I wanted to get it sorted out during that time. And during that time, a lot of guys weren't really playing, just with the trickle down effect with, you know, NHL guys going other places. And, you know, there was a lot of guys kind of out of work. But that was kind of the mindset, is I wanted to get back playing, you know, at 100%. And it took longer than anticipated, but it was more about just kind of finding the right type of therapy, I guess, that we kind of needed. And it was a lot of trial and error to figure it out. So I'm glad I took the time to figure everything out. And you can probably tell I'm not super thrilled about talking about this time, but it's, you know, it's happened. And, you know, I've been playing, you know, almost another, I don't know what it's been, maybe 8 or 9 years since or something. So it's water under the bridge. I actually developed probably a lot of techniques and stuff to keep the body healthy for the long seasons and stuff. So it's kind of I try to take it, you know, with the silver lining is that it's maybe prolonged some of the end of my career, and try to extend it as long as I can. So
the other thing I always, you know, when we talk to, you know, players that have been through adversity, it, you know, 9 times out of 10 makes you stronger out the other side. And you obviously you went back into playing pro hockey at an amazing level. You know, you went back to the KHL. You know, you've kind of you know, experienced a lot of different leagues and cultures. And then, you know, the one thing I wanted to pick it up with you is you ended up in Finland, and you played some Champions League hockey. Now, the Blaze have been in the Continental Cup in their history, which you've also played, and I'm sure we'll talk about that in a minute. But for those who follow soccer, football, you know, in my mother tongue, how similar is the format of the Champions League in terms of it being a bit of a mishmash of teams from different leagues with different playing cultures, all in one place? It must be so much fun and such an experience.
Yeah, it was. I want to say when I signed in Finland, it might have been like my first games, like, because I ended up getting there in October. I got there in October, and I want to say my first game was Champions League, and we were playing. I want to say maybe I might say this wrong, but Vaxo in Sweden. But it was really good hockey. It's definitely different too, because you're kind of playing 2 different systems, right? They're playing their system, you're playing yours, and within each league I've been, there's the systems are related with it per league you're in. So yeah, it was really, really good hockey. It was fun. It was kind of like, you know, trying to prove what country is which is the best thing, how to do what sort of system. And you know, you're just kind of taking it all in. You're getting to travel to some places where you probably weren't planning on going to, especially when you're in the Champions League. So but like, it's just the quality of hockey is really, really good. And especially like as you move forward, it starts getting pretty tight. So it's some pretty good hockey to watch.
I've never thought of it like that, actually, that national kudos as well, which is kind of dumb if I think about it, because, you know, Cardiff have played in the Champions League, and, you know, they've taken a couple of wins there before. So actually, you know, if you end up, you know, I think you're in Saipe when you played there, if I pronounced that right. So, you know,
I think so. I still don't even know if I'm saying it right.
Honestly, when we have Swedish guys on the team, I have to double check so much of the pronunciation. Otherwise, I just end up looking silly. But like, yeah, it's a national team kudos as well. I never the national kudos. Sorry, not the national team. I never really thought about that. That's really interesting. So when you finished out in Finland and in the Champions League, did you kind of thought, okay, let's try and experience, you know, some different hockey. Let's try and soak in some different cultures at that time, because, you know, the Finnish Elite League is amazing, and, you know, it kind of opens the door playing in one of those leagues to so many other places in the European elite leagues.
Yeah, no doubt. You know, there's I don't, you know, and you kind of lose touch with some of the leagues, but I do know at that kind of time there was a lot of, you know, North American imports going from that Finnish league and then moving on to a lot of guys going from there back to Russia.
Yeah.
And then a lot of those Finnish guys going from Finland to back to North America. And it's just kind of interesting, the carousel of different countries where people go. But yeah, every time I go to a new country, like, you know, you try to, you want to like invest your time into the people's culture. Like, it's part of why I like doing and you know, going to new countries and living in new countries is, you know, like, it's, if I didn't like doing that and you know, being a part of the culture, then it kind of defeats the purpose of wanting to go do it. And I understand there's the hockey side of it, but, you know, you're at the rink for a certain amount of time, and then a lot of part of it is developing relationships that, you know, I've got friends from all over Europe now, that guys I've played with that, you know, we stay in contact here and there. So it's, you know, if you ever end up in a country, all of a sudden you can look up a guy and go for a beer or something and reminisce on old times. And, you know, it's hockey's a very interesting way to network and get to meet a lot of interesting people across all countries.
Yeah, no, that's a really nice way of putting it. And I think as well, it's a privilege too, right? You know, if you've got the athletic gift that you can play, you know, not just hockey, right, but any professional sport, and, you know, you played right at the top, played in Montreal, but you know, there are other amazing leagues out there. If you've got the opportunity to travel, I mean, if I was in your shoes, I probably would have done something very, very similar. And like you said, you get to play in some beautiful places. I mean, Dornbrenner, I mean, not just Dornbrenner, but the whole of the Austrian league
Yeah, for sure.
stunning. I mean, I guess you flew between places, right? So in the Alps and whatnot, I mean, that must have been a dream most of the time.
Yeah, like I've actually very, very fond memories of Austria. It's one of, when people ask me, you know, what's your kind of favorite places that you've lived? You know, Austria is right up there, and Dornbirn's not like you know, it's not like this big giant city or anything, but it's located in a very, very cool spot between kind of, you know, Switzerland, Germany, and Italy, and they've got a lot of those cultures within you know, within that region, whether it be, you know, like their sports or their food and all this, you know, kind of stuff kind of mixed into an area there. The weather is unbelievable. You know, you've got sunshine almost every day peeking through the mountains. All, you know what I mean? You obviously get the snow and stuff, but it's different. And I'm like, from being like playing in Denver, and I love the mountains, the Rockies in Colorado. You know, it's definitely a different experience, like living in those places in the mountains. And obviously we got to, Innsbruck was our big rival there. And, you know, they're a few hours into like, that place is like a postcard. Very, very cool spot. But yeah, like I would say if you're big skiers and things like that, you know, I know we had guys that I mean, it's years later, they're retired now. We had guys that would be, they'd be going skiing after practice, but they wouldn't tell anybody because they didn't want to get in trouble or something or get an injury. But it was kind of funny, some of the stuff that came out after that season, what guys were kind of doing. And we went on like a team trip after the year up into the mountains together, and so kind of got to experience that side of it too.
Yeah. We've had, I mean, totally different setting, but we've had guys play on Utah, for example, over the years. You know, they get out of Salt Lake City, they get out of practice and go throw a pair of skis on. Or I guess on the flip side, I know we talked about this a little bit before we push record. Back in the day when Augusta was still around, if you like to play golf, I mean, that's like literally not the home of golf, obviously that's St. Andrews, but like it's one of the most prestigious places. I nearly slipped up there. One of the most prestigious places to go play golf if you can manage it. But hockey being a small world, right? a guy that you would have undoubtedly encountered that year. And I think you guys are pretty much neck and neck in the scoring race for quite a lot of it, is your new teammate Colton Yellowhorn. Would you say you guys are kind of similar players? You know, you're not 6'4" power forwards. You know, you rely on the creativity, the shiftiness. What do you remember of playing against him that year?
Yeah, like, I mean, well, the biggest thing I would say right out of the gate is like his shot. Whether, I don't know what he said or what he wants to admit, but he's got a very, very high level shot. And I would say, you know, maybe 10 years ago, I probably, like, I can still put the puck in the net, but I do it a different way. I would say most of my goals are going to be, you know, within, you know, a few feet in front of the net, where he's, you know, I've seen him make goalies look pretty silly, just with how kind of accurate and how he's very good at getting his body around pucks.
Yeah.
Which, when it comes to shooting, if you can't really do that, you know, it's a skill that kind of maybe isn't talked about that much, but he can get his body around pucks and get pucks on net. Where I would say maybe I like to make, you know, a little bit more of maybe a playmaker. But it's always interesting. You go, whatever league you go to, you kind of, depending on how teams play or how your team or the chemistry lines up. So, you know, some years, depending on who I'm playing with, I end up being more of a playmaker. Sometimes I'd be more of a shooter, and sometimes it's almost like a mix 50-50. Just kind of depends on what kind of the rest of the guys are doing, what their strengths are. And, you know, I try to just add to their strengths, if that makes sense. I try to just kind of add a little bit more to, if they're really good at this, all right, well, I'll try to get them the puck in those spots and try to create as much offense as I can.
Well, I don't think, without blowing too much smoke at you, I don't think you'd have had the career you have had if you were completely one-dimensional going forward with the puck. But speaking of being the playmaker, though, the next year after that in Slovakia, in Zvolen, you led the league in assists. So you must have complemented that line that you were on pretty well that year. That must have been fun.
Yeah, it was good. The team there, we actually, it worked out well with a few of the guys, just because they were good. We had, you know, a couple of guys that could really skate, so I could get them the puck in space, and they could just open up and, you know, have that breakaway speed. And then I had a couple other guys that were just really good at finding some soft areas in the offensive zone, and just kind of getting guys the puck. So like that year, I'd probably say there was a lot more guys that were wanting to score or wanting the puck. And like, I always loved playing with those guys, because like, I'm always kind of looking for them. So it kind of was an interesting one there. And I guess even the year in Austria, we had some guys that could really pound the puck too. So I'm hoping that Colton's been shooting some pucks, and because I'll be ready to give it to him.
Yeah, no, for sure. I have no idea what Danny and Kino are planning in terms of combinations. Right. I'm a bit of a nerd for it, and I bumped into Kino at the weekend. We had a fundraising thing at the rink, and I bumped into and asked him, "Hey, Dale, have you figured out who you're putting with who yet?" And he, you know, he's a dour Scotsman. And he was like, "Oh, but I'm not telling you." I was like, "All right."
I mean, I don't have any inside information. Colton's pretty much the only guy that I know a little bit personally from playing against him and stuff. And, you know, we've talked here and there, but I mean, all that stuff always seems to work itself out as the season goes on. And I'm sure this will be no different.
Yeah. I got to ask you about a weird year, because the Elite, actually, to be honest, let's be frank, the whole world had a weird year in the 2019-2020 season. For the Blaze, we were the hottest team in the 2020 calendar year. You know, we'd rocketed up the table. I think we were, you know, tied for second at the time. You know, we were looking at being the dogs for the playoffs. Things were looking pretty. And then the rug got pulled out from everybody. And I think, you know, there was a lot of unfinished business there. But it was your first professional cup as well, if I remember rightly, in Rouen that year.
That's right.
How did that end? Because
I'm glad you brought this up, because this is actually, for as kind of how boring the year was, with the amount of games that weren't played, and, you know, just, there just wasn't much to do, right? I'm sure it's similar where you guys were, but nothing was really open, and we were just kind of playing hockey, and we got shut down a couple times. But this is actually probably my favorite story that I tell over my entire hockey career, just because I know it will never be replicated ever again, and there's no possible way that it could. So we found out halfway through the season that it's going to be soccer football rules, that it's just regular season champs win the playoffs. Yep. So okay. So we're at I think we're undefeated at this point. Like we're like 18-0, haven't even given away a point. And so we're pretty much got this thing wrapped up. And so we're playing a game, and I think all we have to do is I think we just have to, the game has to go to overtime, and we win, and we win the league. So the team we're playing, I think it was Gap. They're one of the top teams in the league. And we're going, and I believe we're down a goal in the third period. So all of a sudden, like we pull our goalie, we score, we send the game to overtime. So we've won the league at this point. We've won the league, but the game still needs to go on.
Sure.
So we're kind of we're trying to hold back our celebration, trying to be somewhat respectful. There's no fans in the arena, so it's all pretty quiet. So like you can kind of hear a pin drop in the place. So we go to overtime. They end up it's going through, like going back and forth. They end up scoring, and so their team literally clears the bench. Like they won this. It's like they won the Stanley Cup because they were the first team to beat us. Like the whole season. So they're going crazy. But as soon you can see where this is going, right?
Yeah.
So they go on the ice. They flood. So they're in our zone. We then, as soon as the puck goes in the net, we throw our gloves off and we go on the ice. So they're pretty confused. They didn't even realize that we won. They didn't know that we won the league. So we have both teams around our goalie. Everyone is celebrating, and there's no fans. So it's like, it's a very weird atmosphere because you can kind of hear everybody. Everyone's kind of like, they're looking at us like, what are you guys doing? And then they're like, we won the league. So then they're like laughing. And it's just like, I don't know. It was a pretty crazy thing. Cause I wish I could get that on video where like both teams are celebrating simultaneously. And it was just like, this is never going to happen again. But at the end of it, like we had a really strong team. It was kind of too bad we didn't get to go into like have a real, series against teams, because like we were very, very strong. We had several guys that had played NHL, AHL, a lot of good European leagues. So we had some good hockey players on that team. But I think we were 18-0-1 at that time. And
whoa, that's crazy. That's never happening again, man. But I should probably know this. I should probably know this in my line of work, right? But I don't, and forgive me. But you said it should be on film. You wanted it to be on films, right?
Yeah, like I'm just trying to think. They might have that, but like I just never really. Looking back on it, I just think how funny it would look just from like it was zoomed out. If they score and we jump on the ice and start celebrating, but
But like, did they not stream the games? Because obviously, I'll be commentating on you in a few weeks. So, and
we might be able to track it down.
That's someone's mission. That is a Blaze fan's mission to try and find the footage from that game. Because I commentated with my buddy Stu, who usually joins me on the podcast here. But he's on vacation right now. We were lucky to commentate on a mini series in 2021 where there was only four teams from the Elite League could commit to it. And it was in Nottingham's rink, which is really nice, to be fair. It's one of the nicer rinks in the Elite League. And it holds about 9,000, 10,000 at a push. Nobody in there, apart from the players and us media guys and obviously the coaches and whatnot. So you could hear a pin drop. You could hear everything. It was pretty nuts. So I would have been surprised if they played it completely behind closed doors and didn't, get a stream somewhere. But that's a mission for Blaze fan. There you go. Someone's got to go find that out.
I'm sure it's out there, and I'm hoping I did the story justice. But it was yeah, I like telling that story just because I'm like, I just don't think it's ever going to happen that way ever again. So
They probably thought you guys were trying to fight them or something. It was like a bench clearance.
they seemed it's like some of them seemed confused. Maybe a couple of guys might have known what was going on, but we all knew. So like either way, we had like a plan. It's like we're going, like, we just won the league. You know, we were actually we were like holding back our excitement, waiting for the game to end. And it just finally did. And but like both teams kind of, it was just, yeah, simultaneously both teams cheering. No one was mad. Everyone was happy.
That's how you want to end sports, right? That's everybody goes home happy.
Yeah, it's a win-win, I guess. It's just, I know, it's very, very rare that that's going to happen.
For sure. Bit of a weird year last year, not to bring the mood down too much, because you went from the highs of being, and I think I'm pretty much verbatim quoting your coach in Brasov as being the best player in the league, to catching a bad dose of COVID, and then you ended up in Germany, and I think, you know, it's fair to say you weren't quite 100% there. What a strange year! You've had some strange years in your career, Brock.
Yeah, no, it's we're still going, and it's we're not done yet. So I'm hoping, I'm hoping kind of all that's in the past. You know, it's had a lot of time to recover and get back on feeling good. Like, yeah, it was kind of too bad just because I know my coach that had me in Austria before, and I went to his team last year, and you know, felt great off the start of the season, like really, really good. It was, you know, couldn't really do anything wrong, it felt like. And then just it's weird how fast things can kind of change. But you know, I'm super excited to get going because you know, it's just after the long couple of years like this, you know, just looking forward to getting back, getting the dressing room with the guys, you know, playing in front of fans, you know, playing hockey the way it's, you know, it's supposed to be played. And it actually kind of gives me goosebumps, like, thinking about it, because I'm like, it's weird. I kind of feel like, you know, not to be cliche, but I kind of feel like a kid again. Like, if I'm actually have that, you know, that excitement to get things rolling again. So, you know, it's a big change. Like, I don't know if you've talked to other guys, like when you're playing and there's no fans, you know, to me, hockey's not, you know, most sports probably aren't. And, you know, but obviously we're talking about hockey here, and it's without that atmosphere and that environment, it does kind of change things, and it makes it a very different feeling. So like, I can't wait to the puck drops and the fans are going, and, you know, the guys are buzzing around, and, you know, that's kind of way it's supposed to be. So
if you're excited, I think there's a lot of Blaze fans out there that are going to be excited as well, because, you know, we've gone through your career, and you'd think that nothing phases you, but if you're pumped, I think everybody that's going to pull on a Blaze jersey and go and sit in the Sky Dome is going to be excited too. But before we wrap things up here, because I mean, I could talk to you all day, but I want to try and keep this from being like a 5-hour-long Joe Rogan special style. How did that phone ring with Danny Stewart on the other end to say, hey, have you ever thought about coming to Coventry? How did that come about?
Well, we had kind of been in communication in the past. Sure. So yeah, I was talking with some teams and trying to figure out what kind of what I was looking to do for this year. Like you said, from what we talked about, the way last year ended, I really wanted to set myself up to be in a good situation and have you know, get that excitement going. And so I'd been talking with a few teams, and so we ended up speaking together. Just really liked the conversation that we had, like what he was saying. I'm assuming he liked what I was saying, and we ended up working something out. But you know, and you know, obviously, like the fact that, you know, he had other players in the past that, you know, guys that I know that have spoke really highly about him. And you know, because the hockey world is a small place, so you end up hearing a lot of things, you know, about you know, players or coaches or the organization and stuff. And it just seemed like a really good fit. The conversation really went well. And yeah, it ended up closing pretty quickly. And like I said, I think that was more for me just wanting to kind of get things going, and start generating the excitement of getting to a new place, and wanting to have some team success there, because like I said, it was a long year last year, and I'm really looking forward to this, and coming and meeting up with you guys.
Does it kind of I guess make you lick your lips a little bit, because in terms of how the style of hockey is in this country, it's like a polar opposite to when you're in the Allsvenskan, because the Allsvenskan's relatively low scoring. It's a bit of a chess match. Don't get me wrong, the systems and stuff here are a million miles away from when they were like 10-15 years ago. But you got guys scoring. You don't have a lot of 2-1 in OT games, but that must, as a scorer or a guy that dishes the puck out, really get you pumped.
Absolutely. Like I could probably go through each team and tell you guys I've either played with or played against. And, there's a lot of guys that even from my hometown here in Brandon that have played in the league. And there isn't a whole lot of negativity towards the league. I've got a little bit of background with the league. I don't know, you probably won't see this because it won't be on any of the stats, but we had a training camp in Hamilton in Scotland.
Yep.
So we play, it was the Bulldogs, the Toronto Marlies, the Belfast Giants, and I want to say the home team, I'm going to butcher this, but the Edinburgh.
The Edinburgh Capitals, yeah, they don't exist anymore.
Capitals. Yeah, so I had a little bit of experience with it, and even at that point in time, we won those games against those teams, but you could kind of see it's trending. It was trending in the right direction. Yeah. And obviously from being over in Europe, I know guys that have gone and played. I have a lot of ex-teammates that played in the league, and they're like I said, like it's all very positive stuff, and it sounds like the league's growing and getting a lot more competitive, like year after year. So I don't know. It's like I said, I'm excited to get over there. I've been in that area before. I think it's a great part of the world, and I know that the fans love their sports there, so that's always an extra bonus to come. So
yes, there's something pretty special about Elite League fans, I got to say. We're a fun bunch. Brock Trotter, this has been awesome. Thank you so much for putting some time aside. I'm not even kidding. I could literally do this all evening, but I've got to check out here, and maybe we can pick up at some point during the season when we've got some Coventry Blaze hockey to grill you about. How's that sound?
Sounds great.
Guys, thank you so much for joining us once again on the Blaze TV podcast. Couple more guests coming up soon. We've got Tanel Lashinsky coming up, and Alexander Kukali, the two new defensemen. We'll have them on next week. So until then, from me, from Brock, from everybody at the Blaze organization and Blaze TV, thank you so much. Stay safe. And it's only a couple of weeks until we'll be seeing you real soon. Bye for now.